Real Talk, Indiana's premier talk show on real estate investing, where we talk each week about investing your money right here in Central Indiana. The tips, tricks, do's, and don'ts, brought to you by CIREIA, Central Indiana's oldest and largest real estate investing association. Hello there. My name is Vicki Perry, and I'm the Executive Director of CIREIA. We have over 600 members, all active in or learning how to be active in real estate here in the Indiana market. This radio show is available on FM 95.9, AM 950, podcast on YouTube, and www.cireia.org. Join us each week as we talk about how you can make your money more active with better returns and help the community that you live in with real estate done the right way. Now, on with the show.
This is Real Talk, the only local real estate investing radio show where active investors discuss real estate investing done the right way every Saturday and Sunday from noon until 1 p.m. I'm Ron Watson, president of the board of directors of CIREIA, and your host today. We're going to be discussing some of the headlines that are affecting the real estate investing world, and you can check out how to contact each of our guests on our website at cireia.org and find out how to reference the materials we're going to be talking about. Joining me today are three of the top investors in Central Indiana. First, we have Dave Short with Century 21 Sheets. Dave is an investor, realtor, coach, mentor, and one of the most sought-after rehabbers in Central Indiana. Welcome back, Dave.
It's great to be here.
Also here is Sterling Davis, owner of Athosity Property Management, entrepreneur, realtor, and active on the board of directors for CIREIA. Hello again, Sterling.
Hello, hello.
And also joining us is Brian Snyder, sales and marketing manager for Simple Wholesaling, one of the top wholesalers in the state of Indiana. Welcome back, Brian.
Glad to be here.
Well, guys, I appreciate everybody joining us today, and I wanted to start off with just a couple of headlines about some things that are happening in the real estate investing world. And the first article that I wanted to just briefly mention, and then we'll head into another direction here, is an article from Realtor.com on October 22nd of this year, where it says, "The new boom towns, 10 surprising U.S. cities where home prices are soaring." And I'll just read a couple of brief excerpts from this, and then we'll get into another topic that I wanted to dig into a little bit more details. This says that just because the rate of price acceleration is starting to slow nationally in terms of housing, that doesn't mean every market is pumping the brakes or moving in reverse. There are a few places where home price growth isn't just edging up, it's actually growing at an accelerated rate, putting fat profits into the pockets of sellers. And I just thought this was interesting because two cities are in Indiana. Number 10, according to this article, is Indianapolis, and actually number 4 is Terre Haute, Indiana. So very interesting that we're being recognized. We see this in terms of places that people want to live, and we've seen the Carmel listed in that category many times. But this is very interesting, and where home values are skyrocketing, according to this article. But from a real estate investor perspective, I think one of the things that happens, and I know I run into this, and others have told me the same thing, that it's hard to find enough people to work on your houses. And I know Dave, who is one of the leading rehabbers in Central Indiana, we've already mentioned, has his own people. They just won't want to work for anybody else. He calls them up and they'll come running. But for everybody else, it's a little more challenging. And there's a group of guys here, and I guess this is in Fishers. They're putting an incubator program together to help train new people on some of the trades that really are in need: HVAC, plumbing, electrical, all those kinds of things. And I'm hoping that this will help make it a little more easy for investors to find people, not just contractors, but good contractors. So you maybe start with you, Dave. I know you've got people that you work with on a regular basis, but can you talk a little bit about if you have difficulty finding enough good, talented, value type people to work on your properties?
Well, that's the biggest problem that flippers in Indianapolis and all over the country have, is finding qualified contractors that can complete their project. And how we've solved that a lot is that I have a full-time superintendent that helps us with our projects. But so I've almost basically hired him to micromanage our contractors. And the key with any contractors in today's world is don't let them get ahead of you on work performed and money paid. And if you can keep that simple process in place, then a contractor, what I will say, can only scratch you. He can't create an open wound that you might bleed to death.
Yeah, okay.
We talk to a lot of investors here that the contractor has completed an open wound that he can't catch up from. So we micromanage him, try to not let him get ahead of us on labor versus work performed. And then if it doesn't go well, you can part your ways and there's not any hard feelings. There's a lot of contractors that can't work for me that I don't have hard feelings from, but had I not micromanage them at the point, then we probably would have issues with them right now.
No, I totally agree. I mean, it's interesting. When I first started my company, I started a company 10 years ago. It was called Nationwide Facility Maintenance, right? We're this
what a great name.
Oh man, I mean, like we were this nationwide company that we were out of my living room. But the one thing that we were able to scale was because of Google. Google made it so accessible to find contractors. So we had all these big box stores, Big Lots, Hobby Lobby, LA Fitness, and we would service their maintenance. And the way that we made this possible is through Google. We would Google handyman Florida, handyman and we was able to scale from it. So it allowed us to be able to not only find handyman, but 10 years ago, Google, we were cutting edge 10 years ago with this. But
you put Google on the map.
Yeah, I think that is what I think I created Google.
Yeah.
No, but we were able to even start looking at the reviews and things like that to determine if they were better contractors. 20 years ago, I imagine I wasn't in the game 20 years ago. I was only 10, but you wasn't assessed. The only way you could judge someone off their talent was based off of their word or somebody referring them to it. Now you can literally tell the work of a contractor or the work of someone based off of Glassdoor and everything else that's online, right?
So that's interesting because I know one of the issues that I have or others have when they think about getting involved in real estate investing is, maybe I've got a full-time job and I just don't have the skills or the ability to take care of that plumbing issue or that electrical issue. So are you saying that you're really leveraging those types of technologies today to figure out who good contractors are, and how are you doing that?
Well, I think that's just been a one of the tools that we've been able to utilize that has been really helpful for us is Google. I think we've been able to locate, because the thing is it's levels to the Google search and as well as LinkedIn and all these other, because I don't think when you really get into investing, you want somebody too big that they're advertising on Google and things like that, right? It's kind of that we always look for that lower, all right, you're not on a sponsorship, but you're 3 pages into Google. So you have a website, and then we are able to kind of figure out what the presence are. And so it is a tool when you're a newer investor that you can kind of leverage and utilize.
Well, one of the things, Sterling, is that, there's a lot of tips, not letting the contractor get ahead of you. Yep. Tip number 2 is if the contractor wants 50% up front, then you're just looking for trouble, because in my opinion he's finishing another job with your money and he's going to your job and needing another job to finish your job. We have given money before, never 50%, but if I typically want to buy all my supplies for my contractor, because I want to know my stuff gets to my site. And that should be enough to get him going if you pay promptly. That's tip number 2 from a flipper. If you're working with a contractor and he has the work done and he properly invoices you, then that check should be instantaneous.
Yeah.
These guys can't wait. You need to understand that they can't wait for 2 weeks to get their money. They need, they would expect it for work performed. If we go to a closing and we close a house and the title company says, well, we'll send you your check in 3 weeks, we're not going to be very happy. Because the work's performed, the deal's done, I want my funds.
Yeah.
And the contractor's the same way. It's just on a mini scale.
We literally just dealt with this on a contract. I mean, I've learned from Nationwide, like we were dealing with contractors, right? Like and these contractors, one of the biggest issues we have is change orders and how that affects our job. Like, oh, we didn't know. And when as a immature investor, what I used to do is like, oh, I used to make them kind of eat it. And then they'd be like, at the end of the job, they're like, well, I ate this. I'm like, no. Now we're like, no, we don't want you to eat it, but you need to submit your change order. So then we know how this job and project is performing, because that's how they try to trick us a little bit too.
Well, we have so many flippers who, they'll get the work done, and I'm very guilty of it. Just ask my wife, where say, well, I want to do this. I expect to pay for them, but a contractor thinks, well, he just wants me to do it for free.
Right.
And I really don't expect him, if I make changes on our scope of work, for them to do it for free. But a lot of investors, and I would say a high percentage, oh, will you paint the trim on this gray instead of white? Well, that's a 15 or 20 minute fix, but he's got to get the paint, he's got to hire his guy to do it, he has to bill me to do it. So that's a $50, $60, $70, $100 change. I should understand that. Most flippers think, well, he's here doing it, just go ahead and do it. And now you're running your contractor out of business.
Oh yeah.
That's one thing I want to kind of ask you guys about. Like, with our business, so we don't have any in-house contractors. And I'm like kind of one of the people that, like, when I read this article, I got excited about it because, like, hey, that's my pain point of finding good contractors and skilled contractors out there for my investors. But I wanted to kind of ask you guys, because you guys deal with a lot more contractors and just rehab projects. How do you, like, what are some tips to going about, like, managing those contractors? Is it something that usually just comes with rapport of building, or do you just have, like, kind of a policy of, like, hey, I always stick with this? How does that work?
Well, one of the things is expectations from the contractors. When are you going to start and when are you going to be finished? Mm-hmm. Okay, and that serves two purposes. It lets you schedule what you want to do in your job. Purpose number two, it can keep a contractor in line so he can make his profit. If a contractor says I can start Monday and be done Friday, and he's not done to the following Thursday, and he's been there working, well, I now know that guy's not going to make any money on this job based on what he's bidding me, because I've accepted his price point that he can, get this job done in 5 days and not 8 days. So now he's 3 days over. So I got to understand that he's over budget, probably not making any money in my job.
Yeah, I think that goes to the point, like, when I first
if he's there working.
Yeah, if he's there working. When I first started, though, like, as a property management as well as maintenance company, right, our page, we had a vendor packet that was like 1 page long. Like, now our vendor packet is like 16 pages long to get them integrated inside our process and what we need them to do, from pictures to before and after pictures, to get them paid. Like, and mind you, I'm talking about, we do a lot of turns. Our turns are the same turns every time. Like, our maintenance it's a process in which we go about it. So it's very important for us to get them integrated inside of our process, that we know that is successful. And the ones that are willing to do that are, honestly, we don't turn that many contractors anymore, because we know the process works. But we have had times when people don't want to abide by the process, and they have had experience with other rehabbers and flippers and hold people, and they're like, well, normally I just eat this cost. Like, no, I don't want you to eat the cost. I just want you to be realistic in your cost. Like, you know what I mean? I just want to make sure that when you walk into a project, why didn't you know that this issue was that it was going to come up? Next time we need to plan for these things.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting, because I think I usually looked at it more from the side of, well, I need you to do this, but I didn't necessarily think about it in terms of, well, they've worked with other investors, and maybe that situation didn't go very well, or maybe they weren't treated as professionally as they could. So I understand now why there might be a little more reticence on their part. And as long as you have outlined the process that you're talking about, and you hold them accountable, like Dave was mentioning, and then you can move through and hopefully come to a more positive conclusion, instead of letting it be less defined and less clear about what the expectations are, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, like, I was talking to a gal the other day, and we pay X amount for getting a hot water change, and I was trying to teach a new property manager of ours, and they didn't really know what pricing was. And I was like, gosh, I guess I know pricing because the last 10 years, this is just what I've been doing. I've been buying materials. Like for us, we do allow them to buy the materials, but I know how much I'll pay for a hot water heater, though. You know what I mean? And I know how much a furnace is going to cost, how much painting should cost for a house this size. So when we first started, we had to learn the business. They're not dictating and telling us a price, really. We know what the price is, and this is what we would do the job
Sterling,
for.
just as an example, it's a little not off topic, but it's part of it, is okay, how on a 1,000 square foot house, what's a furnace change for you?
Like a new furnace?
Yes.
Like 1,800.
Okay. What's a hot water change?
750.
Okay. So and every house can be done for somewhere in this ballpark.
Yep.
And other investors should know. I mean, if you go to bigger name people to get this furnace change or this hot water change, you could be anywhere from $1,250 to $1,500 for a hot water change, or you could be $3,000 for the same, for the same furnace that's going in. So that's why you have to. The small flipper probably has to work with the small entrepreneur, heating and air guy, and plumber and that kind of stuff.
I mean, because we're dealing with margins. Like, you know what I mean? Like, my net on one of my rentals that I own personally is $150. So that $150, if I'm changing out a hot water heater, I remember for this one project I'm doing on Goodlet right now, the lady said for new plumbing and everything, hot water heater, it was $6,000. I said, what? $150 is what I'm working with, and Dave could probably tell you the math of what my net and how long it would take me.
It's
to
a
get
negative, Sterling.
Yeah,
I know
exactly.
That much.
But I can tell you that is not a good deal. And I was like, well, this is what I'm willing to pay. I'm willing to pay $750 because that's what I pay. I know $400 to $500 for a water heater. I know $200 to $300 for labor. This is what I normally pay. And then you start talking about PEX lines and stuff like that. That's minimum. So you have to kind of go through it, and you have to do the work yourself. I used to work with Sean Holzapple, who's a big time flipper and stuff, and Sean used to really be hard line. He was like, this is the number, this is where the SKU number in which you can get it from, like, and that's kind of how I learned.
Well, and that's it's really a good point. We have that all the time. I mean, we did a flip in Meridian Kessler, and we had knob and tube wiring, which is a common situation in those kind of neighborhoods. And our electrician, himself, licensed, and a helper, looked at it. The other realtor who was involved brought us his estimate. He said, well, we want this guy to do the knob and tube wiring. And he was $15,500 to do the knob and tube. And I said, seems high to me.
Yeah.
So I called my guy, and he goes out there, and he says, well, I can do it for $3,800, and I know it seems high, but I've got all this and this and this. I said, I'm okay with the $3,800.
Nope, I'm not.
So I lose my transaction because they wouldn't. I said, I'm not going to give somebody $12,000 to get the same quality of work that I can get from a licensed, bonded, and insured electrician.
Yep.
So there is areas that you don't have to get killed on in the flipping world.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same as holding. Like, I mean, what we deal with as property managers is it has to be licensed and you have to be bonded. So some investors are like, are you sure? My friend told me I can get a water heater for $250. I'm like, I don't know how that works, because a water heater.
My Uncle Joe can do this.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm like, is this apples to apples?
Do you guys have any good resources for somebody that's like just getting into this, or like starting with property management, or like where they're starting with rentals in general, or whatever? Of like, hey, is there like a reference online or somewhere where they could just find like, hey, this is about what this cost? Or
come to CIREIA.
I like that.
And you'll have all the vendors that do the work, and they understand investor pricing, so you can get estimates at a reasonable, timely basis, and you can get your work done on a reasonable, timely, investor-friendly business.
Yeah, I mean, for us, last thing before we go to break, we inside of, like, we use our vendors, like, you know what I mean? So Mike from PPG Paint, me and him had breakfast. I was like, I know you have a list of people, like, you know what I mean? And he literally gave me this guy. I won't tell his name because he's been awesome for us.
You're hoarding your content.
Yeah, like, I mean, he's been so awesome for us, but it's using those leverage of, like, people, and it works out for Mike because they use PPG Paint to do the work, and it works out for us because we get a good contract.
Well, that's Sterling Davis. We're also joined by Brian Snyder and Dave Short, and we're going to take a break and come back with a lot more discussion on this and other topics right after this break.
Are you looking for a new place for lunch or dinner, or a fun place to hold your next company party? Check out Trader's Mill Grill and Bar. Awesome, friendly staff, fabulous food made from scratch, full bar and daily drink specials. Make it an evening with more than 20 screens to get your favorite games, including Golden Tee. Also has 3 pool tables. You can find their menu and hours at tradermill.com. Check out Trader's Mill Grill and Bar located at 5650 West 86th Street, Indianapolis, Indiana.
Do you have a house that you want to sell, but you don't want to fix it up before you sell it? Or you need the cash quickly? Or you just inherited Aunt Susie's house and don't know what to do with it? That's what Dave Short does. He buys houses so you can get on with your life. He pays cash, closes quickly, and buys in all Central Indiana. For details, call Dave at 317-590-4499 or email Dave at bshort@c21sheets.com. That's spelled C21SCHEETZ.com.
And welcome back to Real Talk. This is the only local real estate investing radio show where active investors discuss real estate investing done the right way every Saturday and Sunday from noon until 1 p.m. I'm Ron Watson, president of the board of directors of CIREIA, and we've been joined today by Dave Short with Century 21 Sheets, Sterling Davis, owner of Athosity Property Management, and Brian Snyder, sales and marketing manager for Simple Wholesaling. And we talked the first segment about contractors and some of the challenges and advantages of working with contractors. I wanted to switch gears a little bit. It's going to make everyone a little bit more uncomfortable. Sterling, you're starting to sweat over there, as we're going to talk about the code of ethics in real estate investing. You know, one of the interesting things about living in Indianapolis is we have a lot of advanced education opportunities here at 8 or 9 universities and other educational facilities. For example, Marion University just beat out 6 other schools to open a new Walker Ethics Center next year. They've been given there's a commitment for nearly $9 million to open that center to talk about applied ethics. And I brought this up not for any one particular issue, just that, you know, you see a lot of things in the media, and I think a general perception of real estate investors, it's not always positive, right? Except what you see on HGTV, which those guys are amazing.
Yeah, I mean, in
Those
30
guys are
minutes
really
they build that
amazing.
house? Oh,
I just
God.
can't imagine how. But, you know, otherwise you see, I particularly gets me is the landlord stuff, because that's what I do. And, you know, you get this negative perception that's painted by what landlords are doing or how they're terrible to their tenants. And you know, I think some of it's warranted. I mean, there's some bad things going on. There's bad people out there doing things they shouldn't be doing. And I know we've talked about, we weren't going to mention any names here today, but we've talked about off the air some people that some of you know that may have done some of these things. But I know, like, for example, I'm heading in a direction here, so hang with me. But with CIREIA, we have a code of ethics, and we ask our members to adhere to that. And it's a professional code of conduct because we really want to fight that perception. We want people to do business the right way, and we feel like that there's a duty to the clients, to the public, other members, to members of our organization, and we want that perception of what we do to be received in a positive manner instead of negative. So I want to talk about code of ethics. Dave, do you mind if we start with you?
I'm almost asleep over here.
No, I know. I've got a lot more. I'm on a filibuster right now. So, but I'm curious what your thoughts are, what your experience has been, and with respect to this topic.
Well, having been a realtor for 45 years, you know, we have to take 2 hours of code of ethics every 2 years.
You take that? You take that, Dave? Man?
I do take that. I do take. I've actually have taught it before.
Oh man.
So you know, we're very familiar on how we have to act, and you know, it's like a good doctor. You overdo it to be right, and sometimes you do things to make sure that you're right in how you approach deals. One of our things, and I judge people a lot by how they react to these kind of questions and stuff in regards, may not be an ethics position, but it's a position that I won't do business with people unless I think they're ethical. And so I want to look at how they answer questions and how they act out in the public when things get tough. And transparency is one of them. Transparency is so important if it's appropriate, meaning you don't have to tell your whole life story on it. But, if you have issues with houses and problems, and it's like you don't want to give all the details, then that's not transparency. If you ask me a question, how would you handle this kind of situation with these people? Then I'll ask them all the questions. Well, I really don't want to answer that about them. I said, well, how can I give you an accurate answer if I don't have all the information? So you have to be transparent, and that's how you treat people. I do a lot of flips, and I get a lot of transactions because I tell the people what I expect to make on the transaction if I'm going to do it. And they've got to understand that, you can do what I do if you want to take the time. And can you be as effective as me? Possibly. Maybe not. Maybe you can be more effective than me. So it's a situation where we get a lot of things over other investors because they're guarding what they're going to make. They're like, well, God, I'll never get the deal if the guy knows I'm going to make $15,000 or $20,000. And I'll never get that deal. I get more of the deals that way. Well, at least you told me what you expect to make and how you got to your number versus just giving me a number that's $50,000 less than I thought I could get for the house. We got a transaction last week that we were $50,000 less, but I explained it and I said, here's what I'm going to make, here's what I have to do, this is what it costs me. Oh, that makes sense. I think we can do that.
Right.
So,
No, I think in my experience, I'm a second generation real estate broker, right? So growing up.
Well, you grew up right then.
Yeah. I mean, and it was a unique experience, right? Because as a real estate broker now, we have something called fiduciary responsibility, right? Like, so not only am I going to help this person find a investment property, but I'm also going to make sure that they get the highest and best offer or highest and best opportunity out of it. And honestly, it really is something that I contemplate on a daily basis, is ethics and how investing is ran. Because I mean, it's the reason why I started Invest First Realty, which is a broker for investors, where a lot of people are doing it the right way, but it's people that don't abide by these just common ethics and laws that can hurt. And I think you're absolutely right, because the number one thing as an investor, as well as we talk about as agents, is what? Disclosure. Are you disclosing the proper information?
Yeah, I mean, disclosure, full disclosure, transparency, those are all those huge words. And I just kind of want to go back to as well, like, just your reputation is everything in this business. So once you make that quick buck just to get a deal done, and you were dishonest, or you didn't disclose everything, you weren't transparent, like, you're not going to get that deal again. Like, It's not going to happen. So I mean, your reputation is everything. I know in our business of wholesaling, like, I mean, we see it all the time of just people not being transparent. And we do our best of when we host our meetup to try to teach people as best we can to be transparent in there. Like, as a wholesaler, don't tell people that you're buying their property. You're not buying their property. Like, you are trying to, sell it to, get under contract to sell it to another investor or, a partner or whatever it may be. But they're always giving these people false hope, or they're, taking pictures of, kind of come back to transparency too, of, we get, houses come across our desk all the time of people that want to try to sell them to us, but of course they leave out this one wall that has a huge hole in it, or whatever it is. No, make sure your investors know what they're getting into and what what they're actually getting out of it.
Well, my thought was like, because this is something like when I first started, because I'm a second-gen real estate broker, I was anti-wholesaler, to be honest. Like, I was the guy that was like, wholesalers are crooks.
Wholesalers have a bad reputation.
I've then met like Brett and Brian, and I'm like, well, they're not that bad. Like, you know what I mean? It's just that it's some people out there that are just not doing it right. And I mean, with me and Dave, we're bound by MIBOR. You know what I mean? MIBOR is the one that says you got to be ethical. You have to, and I think that's why CIREIA is good for their code of ethics. Yeah,
and in one of the items that you guys mentioned, transparency, I think that one of the shadows of the reason that people have a negative opinion of real estate investors sometimes is making money, right? And it's okay to make money.
Yeah,
there's nothing wrong with that. Mm-hmm. And that's what Dave was talking about. Was I'm gonna do this deal, and I'm gonna make money on the deal, and this is how much money I'm gonna make. And I think from a landlord's perspective, that's always the thing, is like, well,
if I have a guru, and I've heard him, a guru by a guy who teaches for a living, say that, well, you get a question from a newbie, should I get a real estate license? And if he says, well, no, you have to disclose so much more information to the buyer, then I know that's not the guy I want to deal with.
Right.
Because I want to disclose all that information to that buyer or seller that we have on the product or the deal that we're trying to do. And we get so many investors. I get a lot of these questions with investors or newbies that, well, should I join MIBOR so I can get the information? Or, I've been told you probably don't want to be a realtor because now you have to tell them what you paid for it. I said, all they have to ask me what I paid for it, and then I'll tell them.
Yeah.
I'm not ashamed of what I do, and I'm not ashamed if I'm able to eke out a profit on a flip.
And I feel like Vita Joan Cox came and did that thing for CIREIA when it talks about the downturn, and she spoke about how when the economy gets in those downturns, that's where the wholesalers that are doing well and the real estate agents that are doing well are probably the most ethical. Probably are the one that are disclosing, because the ones that aren't are going to get weeded out. Like right now, it's all these people are coming to market, but where will they be in the next 2 years, 3 years? Right?
It's a free-for-all right now.
Yeah.
Well, and that's just it. Indianapolis is such a hot market. It's super competitive out there. Everybody wants to try to do it. Everyone's trying to get a piece of it. But actually, if you did things the right way, work together, there's enough meat on the bone for everybody.
Yeah. One of the interesting points I think was about this whole idea of transparency, and it's really a relationship, because what you're trying to do is you're doing a deal with somebody, but then you're hoping to do another deal, right, in the same market with similar people over and over and over. You want to be able to repeat that process. You don't want to just, okay, I'm going to make $5,000, woo, and now I'm done, right? And that's why when you deal with people like Dave or Sterling or Brian, they're telling you what you're doing. They give you the information, and they're making money, but that's okay, and everybody's on the same page, and you can do another deal with them because you're wanting to have a good relationship and build ongoing transactions in the future. We're going to take a quick break. I want to get more information and perspectives from our panelists after this message. Are you looking for a career change or a life change? That is the mission behind Simple Wholesaling, the leading provider of discounted properties in Indianapolis. Simple Wholesaling is all about making the process simple for buyers of properties, sellers of properties, and members of the Central Indiana community who want to generate wealth, free up time, and then help you use that wealth and freedom to make a difference in the world. Check them out at www.simplewholesaling.com or email Brian@simplewholesaling.com or call 317-494-7211.
Is this you? You've heard about landlording and you love the idea of a steady stream of income from real estate, but you're concerned about tackling the 2 a.m. calls and worrying about renters who don't pay their rent on time? That's where the pros at Ethosity Property Management take the hassle out of investing for you. They handle the toilets and tenants for over 300 local rentals and are happy to help you with yours. Call Sterling at 888-212-3764 or check out www.ethosity, that's ETHOSITYPM.com. Networking and education are only two of the many benefits to being a CIREIA member. We offer discounts and rebates at Home Depot, Office Depot, National Tenants Network, and tons more companies who specialize in helping real estate investors. At CIREIA, we believe that your business is only as good as your support. Check out www.CIREIA.org to see the dozens of resources you can use to go from dreaming about real estate to actually doing it.
And welcome back to Real Talk, the only local real estate investing radio show where we actively talk about investing in real estate and doing it the right way every Saturday and Sunday from noon to 1 p.m. Dave Short, Sterling Davis, and Brian Snyder join us here on the panel today. We've been talking about ethics in real estate investing. I just wanted to mention a couple things before we get back to the panel. At CIREIA, we do have a code of ethics, and we hold people accountable for that because we want to change that perception. There is some negativity out there. We want people to be doing things the right way, the professional way. For example, we vet our vendors to the extent that we can to make sure that we're comfortable with the way they're going to treat our membership. And so as a member of CIREIA, that the people that we have there have been held to a higher standard, and if something goes wrong, we try to deal with that as well. And one of the things, like Simple Wholesaling, as one of our vendor members, I think helped change the perception of wholesaling in this area. A lot of people would agree with that because of the way they go about doing business with people and some of the things we've already talked about. So Brian, I'm going to start with you. How do you feel the business ethics make profitability more possible, or is it important in terms of profitability?
Yeah, I mean, thanks for saying that, first of all, Ron. I appreciate that. And that's our goal. Is we want to make sure that, that's what this is all about, and that's the kind of the general idea behind CIREIA and this radio show too, is that, like, whatever you're doing, make sure you're doing it the right way. That means a lot to us, our integrity, our reputation, being transparent. That means a lot to us. And just like Ron, you said in the last segment too, is the whole point of doing business of any kind is to have repeat business. It's really easy to maybe do one or two transactions just to turn it around and keep going. But what you want is that repeat buyer coming back, or your name getting out there, like, hey, you need to reach out to Brian because he has really good properties. He's going to tell you what's up with it, and go from there. You want to work with Sterling because he comes through on what he says, what he's going to do with your property management. That's why all of us, on this panel here are. I think our reputation kind of is out there of, hey, we do things the right way. There are so many members of CIREIA that do incredible things and do it in an incredible way. It's awesome to be around them, to rub shoulders with them, to talk about them, and just to bounce ideas off of each other. A lot of time in this business too, a lot of people will just they find out a little secret or kind of figure out a way to do things. They want to just keep it to themselves and not tell anybody else about it. But part of being this group is to help each other out and help each other do things the right way and share those secrets and help grow the business and help grow the industry here in Indianapolis.
Yeah, I think for us, it's been one of these things that we have noticed that it's not about profitability, but it's about relationships. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, I think if you get into this business solely because of profitability or just because of money, you're going to not last long. Like, you know what I mean? Because you kind of have to give, you kind of have to take. You have to be able to build relationships, and relationships is not always about the money you make today, but the money that you make down the road. And
when you make it about money, it's either going to run out real quick or it's never going to be enough.
Exactly. Great point. You just said exactly what I said, and like just like that. Thanks, Brian. You make me sound smart.
You teed me up for it.
That's No, I think that's the biggest thing when you start building. I mean, honestly, that's why I talk to you guys. It's not because you're going to make me money today. It's because maybe down the road you might like me enough to recommend me or to say some good and kind words about me later down the road.
Well, Dave gave an example, and I don't know that you want to mention names, Dave, but of a deal you did. Somebody brought information to your attention, and you closed on it, and then you paid them a referral fee for that, and they weren't expecting that. And then, by the way, they gave you another referral, right? So pretty quickly, and so they got a little bit of money out of that situation they weren't expecting. You treated them the right way, and then it brings more profits to your door.
Well, and that's just part of what we do, and that's one of the reasons I give back to CIREIA. I've never asked for lenders to come to me to loan me money to do my transactions. I've never asked, well, just send me. Don't send Brett the deal. Don't send Sterling the deal. Just send me. It's like you just give, and then all of a sudden it's just like life. The more you give to life, to family, friends, your church, the more that stuff's going to come back to you. And our business is that way. I mean, I get asked a lot, well, how'd you find this deal? I mean, it's really a good deal in a really nice neighborhood. How'd you find this? Well, how many did you have to compete against to get the offer? And I said, 80% of my flips, there's no other competition. I get the call and they know they're going to be treated fair, and we just go to it because they don't like, most sellers, contrary to what most wholesalers or most other flippers feel, they don't want to compete. They just want to feel like they're treated fairly and get what they need for the house, or if they can't get what they need for the house, to explain them why they're not getting, what they want for the house. They won't, they won't necessarily compete against you. And I think most flippers today think that, well, I've got to go after compete against 10 other people to get a transaction. I very seldom compete against other people to get a transaction, but I put myself in that position by treating people fairly all the time, not just some of the time. These guys are a lot younger than I am at sitting on this panel with me. So when I tell somebody something, it has to be the truth, because if I have to tell them again in a month, the answer has to be the same, but I won't remember what I said then.
No, I think that's a great point, especially when we go back looking at like what the university is doing here, because I think oftentimes we go to college because of what we can get from it, right? Like if it's from education, we really in the end want to make profit. We want to make money from it. So to have education without educating them of ethics is just educating them on the idea of being able to work for profits. Like, I think you have to make sure that as much as you're teaching people how to become a doctor, how to become a lawyer, or it all has to be centered around some form of ethics in a way, or it's going to be lost and it hurts the industry. And that's what can happen if we don't do it the right way, is if we are only teaching people how to wholesale or how to property management or landlord without ethics, indirectly we are going to hurt our industry because it's going to suffer from the lack of ethical behavior.
Well, interestingly enough, one of the reasons that this came up was that a lot of our real estate investors, a lot of our members, don't really have to have a particular license to be a real estate investor. Now, if you're a realtor, you do, and as a property manager, I know you have a license that's required. And so, but for a lot of people that are out there doing these kinds of deals, we don't really have that national or even a local requirement for something like that, and that's why we offer at CIREIA, we offer this educational process, and we try to inform people to do things the right way so that they're out there, and if they're members of CIREIA, then it reflects well on our organization, because these people have been taught to do it the right way. And I think if you're a new investor and you want to learn how to do things and you're wondering how to get started, you can feel it's a safer environment to get started, right? Because we're going to teach you the right way. We're going to surround you with people that feel the same way about it. Yeah. And, overall, that's going to be a better experience for you.
And I think a really good, kind of a really good thing to kind of play off that, no matter where you are, just in your, in your business strategy, or wherever you are in your walk with that, make sure that you are having somebody ahead of you that has been doing it and that you can bounce ideas off of, bounce questions off of, but also have somebody behind you that you can kind of reach out to, talk to, kind of help them along the way too. And that's where we kind of have to, as leaders, in this industry, is make sure that we're helping those people out kind of below us to make sure they are doing it ethically.
Yeah, and I think to that point, I was talking to one of the police chiefs that used to be Chief Height, and he was like, Sterling, in Marion County, there are only 1,000 or 2,000 police officers to the 100,000 of the people actually populating it. And he was like, so at the end of the day, we can't police everything. We have to have communal policing. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the same thing with my board. My board is only this office inside of a real estate building, and it has probably 100 employees, but there's 100,000 real estate, maybe not that many real estate agents, but it's a lot of real estate agents.
Like it.
Yeah, it seems like 100,000, right? Real estate agents. So they can't do it. It has to be communal. And that's the same thing when it comes down to investing and wholesaling and landlording. We can't allow people to police us. We have to police each other. You know what I mean? We have to hold each other accountable when people are doing wrong, or you see people are doing it. We can't just sit back and wait for somebody else to say that's wrong. We can't wait for legislation to be passed. We kind of have to set the tone ourselves so that doesn't have to happen.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons we decided at CIREIA to really focus on this code of ethics issue was that we wanted to grow the organization, and we wanted the people to feel like this is the correct way of doing things. And I know that if I go there, that they're going to take it seriously. And even though they don't necessarily, there's no state requirement that they do these particular things, but I think it does matter. We want to have a good reputation. We'd like to see those news stories that are talking about landlords. Maybe they come to us and get our perspective as well. Things like that are really the kind of the idea of what we're trying to accomplish.
Ron, talk real quick about the PHP, which is on the same vein as the ethics, and it's all part of it.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. The PHP program within CIREIA is an educational program. So if you want to become a professional real estate investor, we have we award, there's a certain number of hours that you're required to receive that accreditation, and you can earn those hours coming to our meetings, going to subgroups, doing some other things that are associated with the organization, and it just makes you a better, more informed, and a professional real estate investor. And it's a unique experience because there's not really anything like that necessarily out there, and it's not required. So if somebody's doing that, it's because they're really wanting to become more knowledgeable, more professional, and those are the kind of people that come to our groups and we surround ourselves with at CIREIA. We do have to take a quick break here, and we're going to come back after this segment to wrap up the final segment, and we will do that in just a minute.
This is Vicki Perry, Executive Director for the Central Indiana Real Estate Investors Association, known as CIREIA. When people ask me how to get started in this business, I tell them to take it in baby steps. Last week, I discussed that step 1 is to come to meetings at CIREIA so you can get one-on-one advice and training and meet successful investors. Step 2 should be to listen to podcasts on YouTube, simplewholesaling.com, Bigger Pockets, read books about investing. Start making a list of what is attractive to you about investing. Do you like to design houses? Do you like the quick turnaround of a payoff? Do you like the long-term financial security of rentals? Step 2 should be to start finding out more about ways to invest so you can narrow down which strategy is best for you. Information, education, collaboration. That's what we're all about. For more info, go to CIREIA.org or give me a call at 317-670-8491. Tune in next week for Step 3.
Are you looking for advice on how to get started making money in real estate? Join us at the State REIA Real Estate Conference on January 12th here in Indy. With 5 national speakers plus a panel of regional experts, it's an all-day educational event. One price with no upselling. Go to Indiana State REIA, that's REIA.org, or call 317-670-8491. 670-8491. And welcome back to the final segment of Real Talk today. We've had a really interesting discussion, I think, regarding ethics in real estate investing. I think it's really, really important that we talk about these really critical issues and the perception that people have about real estate investors. My name is Ron Watson, president of the board of directors of CIREIA, and we're going to wrap up this show today. I wanted to go around the room, get any final thoughts on this particular topic. I wanted to start with Brian because I really thought, Brian, that concept you said of having somebody in front of you and somebody behind you, that's pretty interesting. I like that. I like the way you talked about that. So we'll go ahead and start with you, Brian, and go from there.
I mean, that's kind of a general rule of thumb that I like to have, and no matter what is going on in my business life, my personal life, and my spiritual life, like I like to kind of just go by that motto and things. And one of the things with that, I would definitely kind of say, make sure you talk to people. If you're trying to look for a mentor, talk to them, go out to have a coffee with them, ask them questions, find multiple people to do that with, and then find the person that fits your personality the best, or the personality that you want to have in that business. aspect. Try to find that person that right fits what you want to do. You think they're up and up. You guys get along and you connect. Find that person to be able to do that with. Same thing on the other side. Make sure you find that person that you can really reach out to. You think you can really speak into and help out in this industry. So if you have any other questions or have any info for me, you can always reach out to me at Brian@simplewholesaling.com. That's BRIAN at simplewholesaling.com. Or feel free to check out our website too. On there we have a podcast that Brett Snodgrass and I do. I'm teaching a little bit about real estate as well. And we have articles, ebooks, everything like that on there. So feel free to check that out. My kind of tip for the week, actually, kind of into the industry of, I was going through a bunch of pictures yesterday that other wholesalers were sending me of houses that they thought, we might want to buy and things. And I was just overwhelmed by, kind of got into like how bad the pictures actually were. Not that, because we buy some pretty unusual houses and stuff. No, so not the actual property, but how bad just the pictures were. So if you're in this industry, make sure that you are investing in some kind of software or camera or anything like that to get decent pictures of properties. Because even on MyBoard and stuff, when I'm looking at listings on there, like trying to find comps of I see so many houses out there that just have terrible pictures taken of them, and they could just increase the looks and the value of the property just by putting awesome pictures on there. So that's kind of my tip for the week.
Yeah, sweet.
Thanks, Brian.
All right. Yeah. So Sterling Davis here with Fosti Property Management. I guess my take from this is it's been really good. Like I said, I've always, when I first came into this, was so anti-wholesaler, right? And I think my approach to it now is I'm not anti-wholesaler. I'm anti-bad wholesaler. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and I just
there's a difference.
Yeah, there's a huge difference there. And I think we need to be able to praise the ones that are doing it right, and we need to shoot the ones that are, well, not shoot, but I mean, like, we need to be able to tell the ones that are bad, and we need to hold them accountable, like, and really make sure that they are coming to CIREIA so that they can learn how to do it the right way. I mean, so Sterling Davis with Fosti Property Management, as well as Invest First Realty, which is an investment brokerage for real estate investors. We want to help and help people be the boots on the ground, and we're honest because we're brokers and we're held by a higher standard than most people. You can reach us at 888-212-3764. My tip, it comes from this guy, Alex Sharfin. I just went to this conference, and he is talking about scaling like your portfolio or your business or your property management company and stuff. And he said, success creates deficit, volume creates complexity. So normally when we start having success, if you're flipping houses and things, you start kind of to a point where you're like, what do I do next? Like, you start working your way, if you're doing it right, out of a job. Like if you start hiring a property manager to start overseeing it, you start hiring a project manager like Dave did, and he's taken over all the rehabs, and then you start finding, oh my God, what am I supposed to do with my time? And the volume of that can make us sometimes be complex, and it has complexity as well as it can make us kind of, so you have to keep yourself around people like Dave and people that's doing it to keep you motivated. So that would be my tip, is just keep yourself around people that are on fire and that are hungry and passionate, and that will keep your flame going.
Good advice. Thank you very much, Sterling. And Dave.
I'm Dave Short with the Century 21 Sheets, and my business company is Avalon Management Group 1. And best way to reach me is my email, dshort@c21sheets, SCHEETZ.com. And I'll address from the realtor point of view. I've been a realtor for 45 years now, and we've always adhered to a really strong code of ethics. And realtors are always trying to better their code of ethics. One of the things that we did probably 15 years ago, when I first got in the business, everybody represented the seller with no regard to the buyer. And that's the biggest thing that's been changed in our industry since I've been in it, is now we have to treat everybody fairly to the transaction. So my tip of the day is, every transaction that you get in should be a win-win for everybody. And if it's not win-win, you probably shouldn't be in the transaction. There's something wrong with it.
Excellent advice, Dave, and great combination of information and advice from all of the guests or panelists on the program today. Really appreciate everybody being here. My name is Ron Watson, President of the Board of Directors for CIREIA, And you can reach me at president@cireia.org, CIREIA.org, or stop by my restaurant at Traders Mill Grill, 5650 West 86th Street on the northwest side of Indianapolis. Love to have you come in there. If you've missed previous episodes, you can listen to them on the CIREIA channel on YouTube, or go to CIREIA.org, which is CIREIA.org, and click on Saturday or Sunday on the calendar of events. In January, the Indiana State RIA is holding their second annual conference on January 11th and 12th. They have 13 regional and local experts presenting all day Saturday with no selling from the podium and no upselling. You can register by going to www.indianastateria, that's REIA.org. I want to thank everybody for joining us today and listening, and hope everybody has a great week, and we will talk to you again very soon.